This chainsaw sharpener works so well, I decided to do a video on it. I upgraded a couple of things on it, meaning it needed a little bit of adjustment, but out of the box it actually works pretty well. Doing a couple of things to it makes it work better. Anyways, really surprised that this thing works so well, and anybody buying it would save you tons of time versus hand sharpening. For 24 bucks, I doesn't make sense to hand sharpen unless you're out in the woods somewhere. So here it goes. So putting it together basically consists of putting on the cable there to this end of the unit, tightening up the brake. What else? You want to build yourself a little stand. This will go on a vise, but you could just make a platform like this and screw it to a table or something, and get yourself a huge fancy vise. I chose a 2x6 with a 3/4 inch plyboard, and then I got some fender washers. Those are sheetrock screws, and that seems to work pretty well. When you slip this in, you can put a screwdriver in on this side. While you turn this and tighten it up, you just want to make it flush here. The adjustment, of course, just like a bike, you do up here. I decided to put the brake on at an angle that when you push down, you're also pushing on the brake. So it gives you the same consistent move. With this thing here, I think you should always be real consistent as far as the pressure that you apply. It's I'm impressed that it doesn't shake or move to the sides. It's got a nice hinge to it, but in any case, it's always safer to, like I said, put the brake behind the handle as you're pushing down. It'll naturally want to close up on you. And now I'll go through some of the stuff that I had to do to make this work, because everything I buy at Harbor Freight I seem to have to fine-tune. But here we go. Squeeze that. It tightens up on the teeth and holds them in place while you're grinding. You've got 3 screws there, 2 on the sides and 1 on the bottom. Now when you do squeeze, it will want to pull the whole thing in, but the thing is that unlike a clamp, a real clamp, it doesn't stay square. It's going to shake around, as you can see. Now what I ended up doing to give all the bite to the top versus just fluctuate like that is I'll get a better angle here. If you look from this side as I pull the clamp, you'll see that it starts to angle over, it leans over on the top and grabs at the top instead of the bottom. Before the top and bottom would come and meet the surface equally, but it didn't have quite as nice a bite. The way I caused it to grip at the top is that, like I said, at the bottom here we've got a screw, and then the other 2 on the sides. 2 on the sides have springs. The bottom one is just a retainer to keep this flat. What I ended up doing was taking that screw that you can see now, that screw right there, I pulled that screw out, and then if you can see there, that's a copper sleeve. I placed that pipe between the 2 plates, as you can see, and that screw, and it's rather loose. You could use a more narrow pipe or whatever. I used what I had, but that's a thin walled brass pipe. It needs to be about 1/4 inch or a little less. I'll try and show it functioning here. There we go. And you can see how the top goes in, and that causes it to stop. In any case, that's how I made it grip better, and that's a really easy thing to do. I suggest you do that. The other thing I did was this stop is supposed to sit right over this rail here where your blade sits in, this track, and you can see how it's pretty much on center. Before, it was so loose that this end here was all the way over toward me, and it was totally missing the teeth. So anyways, this stops the teeth in exactly the same place every time. I had two choices available. One was to cut a piece of maybe a 1/4 inch off of this here and extend this away from me, and that would take care of it, but that was just too much trouble for me, so I pulled the clip off here. I on this side here, I ground that. I ground it enough to where I could just fit a washer on there and still having room for the little clip. So it's really tight, but still able to move. The wider washer keeps it from tweaking back and forth too much. In other words, it was enough to keep this on track with in line with this here. I'm sure there's different ways to fix that, but that was a definite issue. You probably already know, but this here will push this arm forward or back. One full turn is like 1/32 and a half over that, almost 2/32. That's how much travel you're going to have on this little jiggity thing. And that's, you know, full turn would be too much to grind off of a blade unless perhaps you're changing the angle on it from 32 to 15 degrees or 10 degrees, you know, for whatever purpose. But that gives you an idea of how much movement. You might be better off to turn it a 1/4 and start with that, but probably no more than half a turn on this thing here. Again, if you want to change the angle, you might turn it a full turn, but that gives you an idea of how much travel this will have for a full turn. Over 1.5 30 seconds. Comes out to be about 38 to 40, somewhere around there. 0.038 or 0.040. So you want to adjust this to wherever you need it. In this case, I'll put it at 35. This is a new blade. I'm not going to do anything with it, but I'm just going to give you, for instance, that's on there. So these will turn it either way. They've got teeth on them. It's a good idea to put some weight on the chain. I came up with this little solution here. I'll give you a better look at it. Basically, it's a sheave with two washers, fender washers on the outside, and a bent piece of aluminum with a nail attached. So the chain sits in here. It can rotate. You put a weight on the bottom. That keeps the chain from hopping off of these gears here, because what it'll do is it'll skip. It's not a big deal, but this does help. Well, it won't go that way because I've got that thing on there. First thing I want to do is, well, I want to make the blade flush with the bottom of the gullet. So I center the blade between the cutter and the stop here for the depth surface. We turn the knob right now. Right now it's hitting the bottom of the gullet. So I'm going to turn the knob until it stops hitting. I'm going to turn the screw just a hair bit. You can hear it scratching. Okay, I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Now it's not. It's a really fine adjustment. Once it's scratching, just touching, that's the back screw there, and it's set for the right width. You tighten it up and you double check. Nope, it's not in there. I'm going to drop it down a little bit. Now it's just barely touching, so that's where you want it. Okay, so that's the first thing I do. Next thing I want to do is adjust exactly where the tooth's going to be by moving this in and out with this adjustment here. So we'll do a close-up of that. As you can see, it's way off. So I'm going to turn this knob here to bring that forward. Here we go. It's not touching yet. There, just barely touching the surface. So that's my beginning point there. Now you can decide how many turns on this you want to do. Again, you do full turn, it's going to be over 1.5 30 seconds. So I would suggest turning it a quarter turn and then giving this a grind. More than likely a quarter turn will just be enough to clean this up, but depending on how badly you've gouged it with screws or nails or whatever, you might have to do some more. But yeah, I would start with a quarter turn on that adjustment. So that's just perfect. Again, if I were going to be sharpening this, I would turn it a quarter turn, and that's what this looks like here, right there. And then I would start grinding. I'm touching that part. Of course, when you do that, you want to grab the blade, hold the tooth in place. You can also, if you're not sure that it's holding nice and tight, you can also turn this back, which drives the tooth toward this stop here. So that'll reinforce that it's nice and tight that way. Just hold it there, put the brake on, and then do your little maneuver here. Anyways, that's pretty much it. So I didn't have to do much to this thing to make it work. And I've never ground a chainsaw before. I've done a lot of chisel sharpening and sharpening bits for lathes and so forth. I just didn't want to do the learning curve for this. I do realize that a lot of people do these by hand, but man, this thing will get it on the mark each time. And if you're not happy with the smooth cut on the tip, you can always go back in and touch it up with a regular file. In my case, I need to sharpen some of these at 35, and I need to sharpen some of these blades at 15, the angle of 15 degrees to cut some slabs. And yeah, it works, so I'm not going to complain.